So how are we going to put in the front? You think I'm going to come out? You want to do this up here, 1450. Before the thing. Sophia should have. Okay. Okay. Oh my God. This is right. This writer, see? Oh my God, I know. Cheering, yeah. I had to watch it. Yeah, the best grand short term on no. What are you? Wow. Yeah.
Fill them all.
I
Oh, see, we originally.
Oh,
You all right? How can you do
Unless you have already discussed like looking at that or thinking.
no, I know I know. No, not Oh, it's just.
Oh.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, she's fine. She's fine. She's in the back. There's the place.
Oh,
Yeah,
you're right. Okay.
We did bring extra chairs. If you want to take one of the seats towards the back, you're welcome
You know
to.
what? I think standing will be fine.
Okay.
Thank you so
Oh,
much.
absolutely.
Are
Of
we out of
course.
camera?
Oh,
range?
you're perfect. Yes.
It's up to you. So,
So my glasses.
no, it's just. Yeah.
John? You too? You want to sit, Sally? Me either. Come on up. Yeah.
Welcome, everyone. We're going to get started in a few minutes. We have some extra chairs back here if anyone wants to take advantage of that.
You don't have to stand, you can sit. Natalie, you can sit. You have Priya?
Yes, sir.
Which one?
Well, I was going to pour more in here, but
Why?
these are
We
ready
only,
to
we
go.
only need 4.
Okay, perfect. I want you to have the cream of the crop.
Well,
Are you discerning in your pre-already?
no, I just wanted to make sure that they're all cuts.
Yeah.
You don't have to cut them anymore. Hi, Sally. You're gonna sit down, Sally? Are you sure? Cindy, no?
We've got plenty of extra chairs. Don't be shy. Out of respect. Out of respect.
There we go.
Would you like me to ask you if you'd like to sit down? How you doing? Okay.
With a little bit of cake.
Yes.
Because I think.
Welcome everyone. We're upon service time. It's a friendly reminder to silence your cell phones. And a request to please keep your masks on during the service.
For the first call upon King Sachs to lead us in the 121st Psalm. 121st Psalm.
As we Adonai, Ose Shamayim, Shamayim, Vara, Oita. yanu shoracha hinelo yanu velo yishon shoma yisrael Adonai shomecha Adonai tzilcha yad yaminecha Yomam hashemesh lo yakeka V'yareyach b'layla Adonai yishmorcha mikol ra ישמור את נפשך, אדוני ישמור צאתך ובואך מעתה מעתה ועד עולם.
I will lift up mine eyes unto the mountains. What is the source of my help? My help comes from the Lord, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your protector will not slumber. Behold, the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your guardian. God is your protection at your right hand. The sun will not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all evil. He will keep your soul. The Lord will guard you going out and your coming in, from this time forth and forevermore. Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu, our God and God of all generations. Thou who governest all things with infinite wisdom and mercy, and who guidest the destinies of all of humankind. As a parent have you loved us and showered your blessings upon us. Therefore we shall not murmur even when sorrow befalls us. But with humility and unfaltering trust we shall accept your decrees. In joy and in sorrow alike we praise your goodness and acknowledge your justice. We remember that we are but strangers upon earth. Like a shadow our life flees away. Help us, O God, so to walk in your sight, that when the few years of our earthly pilgrimage are ended, we may be ready to meet our end with tranquil mind. To thee we look for comfort and strength. One of our beloved is taken from us, and a link is broken in the chain of love which binds us together. Though we walk in the valley of the shadow of death, we shall fear no evil, for thou art with us. Praised, O eternal our God, in all your dispensations. Sanctified be your name, now and forevermore. This time I would like now to call upon Jack, who wants to share some thoughts about his dad on behalf of the family. Take your time, Jack.
The family would like to start by thanking a few special people. We were extraordinarily lucky to come in contact with two people that really helped Dad towards the end. John and Sarah went beyond just normal caregiving. The advice, the counsel, the truly compassionate support for Dad and Mom, as much as anything, and the rest of the family just was phenomenal. We were also blessed by a wonderful hospice nurse, Stevie, and the doctor, Allison from Bloom. And the amazing thing, and I guess it's no surprise, is knowing Dad, is that the relationship with these people went beyond professional, became personal for both Dad, for Dad and all of us. And it was a wonderful support network to be in. So I'd like to thank Rabbi and his wife in particular, because it's his anniversary today, to be here with us. Thank you for that. An aside before I start, interesting aside, is when Mom and I were at the funeral home making the arrangements, one of the people said to us, there's this number 2 keeps showing up everywhere. So security number, his birth date. We laughed and said, well, that was his lucky number. It was on his license plate. And then Mom and I had to pick one of the lots that we're here at today. And this being Alan Fox, we of course picked the corner. And they turned the map around and pushed it over to us, and I'll be darned if that isn't lot number 2. Fitting. Sorry. Thanks, Mom. This may be the hardest thing I've ever done, but in a lot of ways, it's actually the easiest. It isn't a surprise. It wasn't a surprise for us. We had a long, gentle glide into where we are today, and so we had a lot of time to think. And then many of you sent your thoughts and well wishes and cards and emails, and there were a lot of reoccurring themes that I'd started with and that you helped really bring to fruition. And I'd like to think of some of those with you today. The most often thing said about Dad was he was a true gentleman. And really, in 2 senses of that word, he was a gentleman in the classic sense, but he was a gentle man. He was loving, caring. He was a family man. He was a true husband, a true father. And as he always said to us, family came first. The interesting characteristic that goes hand in hand with that is Dad was grateful. He was grateful for what he had. He was grateful for what he accomplished. And he was grateful for his family. And the interesting thing about being grateful is there are two parts to that Dad really exemplified. The first is, if you know somebody who lives their life as grateful, there's this warm, endearing, magnetic personality that goes with it. There's a presence. In this crazy world we live in, with everything moving so fast, you keep reading about, well, you need to be present. You really should work on being present. Dad didn't work on it. He was present. He was there for Mom. He was there for us. He was there for his friends. And there really was no better example of that than when I moved back to Denver and got into business, and I'd meet people and I'd say, I'm Jack Fox. And people would say, well, are you Alan Fox's son? And I'd say yes. And the classic reaction every single time was this warm smile. And people would say, your dad is one hell of a guy. And it was true. And it was just that, and I think I alluded to it when I did the thank yous for those people that helped him. He just had that engaging soul that made you smile. On the true gentleman, classic gentleman side, for Dad, life was about character. He lived it. He chose to associate himself with people of character. And he went out of his way to make sure he modeled that for us. It wasn't lecturing. It was just living a life of character. He had a strong work ethic, as many of you know, both in business and at home. The laugh when we moved out to the country, everybody was equal in the Fox family, into the Fox house. My sisters had work gloves just like I did. Weekends were for chores. Dad loved to putter in the workshop, but he made sure the girls had tools when they went off to college. He knew how to use them. But it was that time together, especially on the weekends, that we really worked and bonded as a family. And as I said, when I got into business, there was no better model for a character approach to work than Dad. Yeah, he always said there are a lot of guys in town, and these are older times. He related to my sisters. He got rid of the guys. He became aware. Work with people you can do business on a handshake with. Look for that in somebody. And if you can't, well, you better get it in writing. But by and large, pick your friends based on their character. And I think you all represent that here today. The other funny little side was one of my sisters once asked in one of those weekends, like, Dad, all our other friends aren't doing this. Why do we have to do this? And he had a classic line. He always just look in the eye and smile, and down, smile, and say, "We're foxes. We're different." And that was the end of the conversation. The other life aphorism that Dad taught was, "Your word is your bond," and he lived by that. Not only in business but in life. And it really came home to and struck a chord when, in preparation for this, we'd asked the grandchildren to send us a memory of their grandfather. And I'd like to read you what one of the grandkids said. He said, "I sat down with Gramps one day after brunch and said to him, 'Hey, do you have any life advice for me?' And this is what Dad said. 'It's important to remember commitments. You've got a family and you have a commitment to them for life. So no matter what happens, you have to remember your commitment to the family.'" And man, he lived that every single day. We came first in his mind. A friend of the family wrote a wonderful tribute to Dad, and I'd like to read part of that to you as well, along the same lines. "Although I didn't know your parents, by knowing you and by observing firsthand how you treat people, I have a very clear idea of what your father stood for. Your character, the way you treat your spouse, the way you nurture your children, and the generosity you interact with your friends, I have no doubt where it comes from." And I'd just like to echo that Mom and Dad were a team. We're here today because of Dad, but the fact of the matter is, parenting was a team effort by both Mom and Dad, and Dad pitched in and dove in as much as Mom. As I reflect on Dad's passing, and this wasn't a surprise that we're here. We had the luxury of spending a lot of time with him as he declined. It really was a gentle glide path, and he was able to do it on his own terms, which was really important to him. He was at home. He wasn't in pain. He was sharp. We all got to have the conversations you always wish you could have had with him, and we did. And there really wasn't much left unsaid. But as we mourn and as we move forward, I'm recognizing that instead of talking to Dad or watching Dad and emulating Dad, we now have the beauty of being able to say to ourselves, what would Dad do? And really carry it forward from here on out. The lessons have stuck. Again, we're surrounded by family and friends. Thank you all for coming. It means a lot to us. The support is tremendous, and we're very grateful to have you all as friends and here today. Thank you.
As I've said many times at moments like this, there is no piece of literature in the world that is probably used more often than the words of the 23rd Psalm. When I told Katie that I was going to say that today, she went like this. I'm going to say more about you a little bit later, but I want to say something about the 23rd Psalm. It's used at moments like this because it says, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death," and we all recognize that. But when I was in rabbinical school, see, I'll come back to that. When I was in rabbinical school, I learned from one of my professors that King David, who is supposedly the author of the Psalms, had something very special in mind when he wrote the 23rd Psalm. And what he had in mind, and it's especially to you as family, don't get stuck in the valley of the shadow of death. You got to walk through it. You have to observe those days and those weeks and those months without a beloved husband and father and grandfather, father in love. Without him at the family table, that's what you have to do. And you don't get stuck in that valley. And I think that's what King David would want for all of you. So with that in mind, I'm going to ask the cantor to chant the 23rd Psalm in Hebrew, and then I'll read it. But if you know some of it or part of it or all of it, please say it with me.
Adonai roi lo echzar Bina dasha yarmitzaini almei menuchot almei menuchot yanani nafshi yeshoveh yeshoveh yancheni v'maglei tzedek yancheni v'maglei tzedek למען שמו. גם כי ילך בגט המוות, וללא כי אתה עמדי, שבטך ומשענתך הם ינחמוני. תערוך לפניי שולחן נגד צורריי. תישנת ושמן ראשי כוסי ראיה. אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי, כל ימי חיי, ושבתי בבית לירך ימים. אדוני רואי לא אחזור, אדוני רואי לא אחזור.
Please join me as you can. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest the table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Poet has written, birth is a beginning, and death is a destination. But life itself is a journey, a growing from stage to stage, from childhood to maturity and from youth to age, from innocence to awareness and from ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion, and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength, or from strength to weakness and often back again, from health to sickness and back we pray to health again, from offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, from grief to understanding, and from fear to faith. From defeat to defeat until looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey, stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning, and death is a destination. Life itself is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage made stage by stage, from birth to death to life that is everlasting. Beloved family, dear friends, first let me thank Jack for the wonderful way in which he has shared with all of us those parts of his dad's personhood that stand out. We're grateful. I'm also very cognizant of the fact, two things. Number one, it's not as warm as we would have liked. That's number one. Number two, the family knew that we were all going to be here, some of you standing. And so I want to do my best not to repeat what you've said. Although there's a couple little things that you said that need to be repeated, just a little bit. But I want to try to share with you as family because this is a moment for you. And you cared about all these people. We spent an hour and a half, a little more than that, the other day talking about what this, most of that time, or at least half of that time, was about what you as a family thought about all of these people who are here and what would be best for them. And that doesn't happen very often. And I have to tell you, in these days, COVID, it doesn't happen very often that so many people who care about another human being come to say their goodbyes. And some, even though it may be fleeting, will be able to acknowledge you, Katie, and this wonderful family. And so we're here because this is a sacred time. Not just a time of memories, although that is such a wonderful thing to do. It is a time to recognize that our days are fleeting as well. No matter how old we might get, and of course we all hope that we will live many, many years. Doesn't always happen that way. And so we have to recognize at moments like this, when we lay someone to rest, that this is a moment about us as well. Of course it's about Alan. And when you think about him, you'll remember that wonderful little smile and that little dimple on one side. I don't know which side it was, but you'll remember him. And I hope that that's the image that you have when you remember him, because it fits in so beautifully with what Jack has already shared with us. Death has come to Alan as a friend. It has released him. And he knew this was coming. There was no question about it. And he shared that with me once, twice. And he understood that. Great philosopher Kierkegaard said, life must be lived forward, but can only be understood backward. As we unpack a life. Yes, and I think for Jack, not for Jack, for Alan, that was especially true. He shared some things with me the other day that Jack has not shared. And that his life was not always easy. When one looks at Alan, one thinks, oh, here's a great guy, great in business, great as a father, great as a friend. That's why you're all here. Didn't happen so easily. He had a hard time as an early child, but he understood it. And it made him a better person. And that's why we can look back and unpack who he was and understand that what he wanted for himself and for his family as they began to become a part of his life. First you, Katie, and then his wonderful children in love that they brought into the family. And then his grandchildren, they're all a part of this same continuum. And for him, he wanted to make sure that what he had to struggle with as a child, nobody else would have to struggle with. It had an impact upon his life. And so who was he? Yes, he was the gentleman who was also a gentleman. People have said that about him. He was generous with people, not just with his resources. And if he was generous with his resources, he didn't put that out there. He did it on his own and didn't put himself in the center. He was one of those people who understood that life was short. I also believe that he was like an artist in so many ways. Just think about a work of art. Think about a work of art. When you look at a work of art, you cannot see where the painting has light. You can only see where there are shadows to indicate where there's light. And why is that? Because the artist wanted to put certain things in the center of that portrait. And that was Alan. He was an artist in that way. He wanted to put other people in the center. He was humble. And he didn't want to take the spotlight from anybody else. He wanted to give it to them. And that's why, yes, his generosity was present. But he didn't want to lift that up so that other people would say, oh, you're such a generous guy. He wanted to do it because it was the right thing to do. And Jack, that's what you were saying. There were certain things that you learned, you and your sisters learned, because it was the right thing to do. He was that kind of person. And he put you all at the center of his canvas. He was proud of this country, served in the Navy. But you know, sometimes people serve, and when they're done, they're done. But he was also in the reserves for 8 years. It wasn't a small amount of time. He didn't have to do that. But he did, because it was in his heart to do so. As Jack said, he told you all to remember your commitments. And to remember that you can, as human beings, take care of yourselves. Now, this is not true of most Jewish men. He was a handyman. As a matter of fact, those Jewish men can raise their hands. And if you think you're a handyman, I know that it's not true. But that's who he was. He cared about that, and he taught that to you girls, as well as to Jack. And being out on the in Morrison, he knew that having to do that and everybody having their work gloves was going to be a part of your character, not his character. And he understood that. But in the same time, he gave confidence to you to do what you could do and to be what you could be and to share with others, because that's who he was. I liked when you told me the other day, because I used to have this in my office as well. He loved his candy stash. And when he wanted to be part of somebody else's life, as he did with you, Natalie, I think you said this, he brought you peanut M&Ms. Boy, what a special gift. My favorite candy, of course. And he liked to fly, and he liked fishing. He liked to be a part of people's lives. He was organized. He had a great sense of humor. And even self-deprecating. I don't know that I should share this story. Some of you were there. I'll share it anyway. And then some of you can say, well, you shouldn't have shared that story, but I will. When Ted and Susie got married, it was a beautiful day. And the setting was beautiful. Some of you were probably there. The setting was gorgeous in the field, and there were chairs set up for everybody. And it was just absolutely gorgeous. And Chuppah was there. And as Joyce and I were driving out 6th Avenue or Hamden, Hamden, and looking, because it was late afternoon, and the clouds were rolling in. You all know what that's like in the late afternoon when the clouds roll in, and then we get a big storm. And I got to the house, and Jack greeted me, and he says, Rabbi, he said, please pray that we don't have rain. Look at what's going on here. So the wedding takes place. The deer were out there. I mean, it was absolutely gorgeous. The wedding takes place, no rain. Everybody goes toward the house and have a drink and an hors d'oeuvre. And then everybody sits down for dinner, and Alan gets up and he says, weren't we lucky it didn't rain? Here's Rabbi Foster to do the motzi. And I started out by saying, Alan, I appreciate being called up to do the motzi, but I do have to tell you, when we got here, you said, please pray. I prayed, and you said, we're just lucky. He did love that. And we talk about that all the time. That's my favorite memory of Alan, because he could see himself with that kind of humor. He was a wonderful person and a dear friend. And I do have to say that you as his family, as Jack has said, you as his family were the people that he was most proud of. And he was proud of how each of you has raised your own families. Proud of the grandchildren, all of whom are here. Because for him, relationships were most important. You notice we didn't talk about what he did and how successful he was. And remember this, and I believe this with all my heart and soul. A person should not be remembered by what they did. They should be remembered by who they are. And who they are helps them to do the things that they do. And it's who he was that we're here to remember, in some ways to celebrate, in some ways to mourn, because he was such a special guy. And so it is for his sister, who unfortunately could not be with us. For you as grandchildren, I want to tell you that I really do believe you have a special role to play. Very special. You'll remember who he was and how he related to you. But your special role is to pass that on to the next generation, who are not even twinkles in your eyes, which is fine. But you will all have your families, we pray. Pass who he was on to them, because it'll make them better people as well. And to you as beloved children, and his children in love, he loved you all. And he didn't treat his in-laws as in-laws. He treated them as children. And he was that special guy. But Katie, obviously, all of these years together, 59 years, doesn't seem possible. You are not married 59 years. That's all there is to it. You're not. You and Alan have had a wonderful life. I want to say something about you that I have come to understand in these past 50 plus years. You know, there are many people in our congregation, our tradition, who've converted to Judaism because they're marrying somebody who's Jewish. And for whatever reason, and I never question this with anybody, for whatever reason, somebody who does choose not to convert, especially in those days, that is okay. Our tradition has a special name for you. You don't know this. It's called a Ger Tzedek. The word tzedek means righteous. A righteous ger, a righteous person who walks alongside of us, but chooses not to be a part of us. But you are a part of us. Not by conversion, but by living. You really are a Ger Tzedek. And we, looking at you, understanding this partnership that the two of you have, we are grateful to you for how you and Alan lived together, worked together, raised your kids together. It wasn't just him. Yeah, he had a lot to do with it, but it was both of you. And so we can only hope and pray that these 59 years will remain with you as a source of blessing and healing, that you will find strength in days to come. Not only to remember him with love, of course you remember him with love, but to remember him with such great fondness that he has been able to create so much for this family. I want to read a poem at the end of this, which I believe if Alan had to choose any things that I have in my packet of poetry, he would say, oh, that's a good one for me. So I want to read this. Some of you heard this before and understand it. It's called The Messenger. Poet wrote, I'm closer than ever before. As the morning sun rises and throughout the busy day, I am with you. Until the setting sun disappears on the horizon and we watch the day turn into night, I am here. You may feel a faint breeze stir around your head while you slumber, as I gently kiss your forehead goodnight. The stars that shine so brightly in my heavenly sky help me watch over you and keep you from harm. I am the wind in the trees and the song of a bird. I am moonbeams in a midnight sky and a glorious rainbow after the storm. I am morning dew and a freshly fallen snow. I'm a butterfly flying overhead, or even a deer prancing in a field. I'm a puppy happily at play. I'm a smile on a stranger's face, a gentle touch, a warm embrace. Listen to the wind for my message of love. Watch the sun rise and set in the sky with me. Feel my essence encircle you with warm memories. Open your heart to know I am not gone. Reach deep into your soul. You'll find me. I am here. Have no fear. I am with you always. I do believe that Alan would say that to all of you in this wonderful family. We can only hope and pray that you will find strength to bear your grief, but always to remember the strengths that were his. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we will remember him. In the blowing of the wind and the chill of winter, we will remember him. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, we will remember him. In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we will remember him. In the blueness of the sky and in the heat of the summer, we will remember him. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we will remember him. when we are weary and in need of strength, we will remember him. When we are lost and sick at heart, we will remember him. When we have joys we yearn to share, we will remember him. When we have decisions that are difficult to make, we will remember him. When we have achievements based on his, we will remember him. So long as we live, he too shall live. For he now is a part of us, and we will remember him. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher yatzar etchem b'tzalmo v'zan v'ukel etchem b'tuvo, v'nit etchem b'din v'natah b'tokechem fe'olam. Baruch atah Adonai Dayan ha'emet. We praise you, O Lord our God, ruler of the universe, who forms us in the divine image, who nourishes and sustains us in your goodness, causing all of us to die and planting immortal life within us. We praise you, O God, the judge of truth. Atah gibor le'olam Adonai rav le'hoshea mechalkel chayim b'chesed v'chayei hakol b'rachamim rabim somech noflim v'rofei cholim u'matir asurim. Eternal is your might, O God. All life is your gift. Great is your power to save. With love you sustain the living. With great compassion you give life to all. You send help to the fallen and healing to the sick. You bring freedom to the captive and keep faith with those who sleep in the dust. We praise you, O God. Plants within us eternal life. Please feel free to do so. At this time, let us lady, children, and sons. The dust returns to the earth as it was. The spirit returns to God who gave it. It is only the house of the spirit which we have laid within the bosom of the earth. The spirit itself cannot die. Here too our dear ones continue in the loving remembrance of those to whom they were precious. Receive in mercy, O God, the soul of our beloved Alan Fox. Grant him that everlasting peace which you have prepared for us in the world to come. Though no human eye has seen nor ear has heard, your mind has compassed it. Still it is our sure inheritance and our everlasting portion now and forevermore. So I would ask you now, dear family and friends, as you are able, to please rise that we might recite together the words that have been hallowed by centuries of faith, the words that have been glorified in our tradition, the words of the Kaddish prayer. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'yalma divrach yirutei, v'yamlich malchutei, v'chaye chonu v'yomei chonu v'chaye d'kol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'bizman karev, v'yimeru amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mivorach, le'olam v'le'olmei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal, shemei dekutsha barichu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran v'yolma v'yimeru amen. Yehei shalom araba min shemaya v'chaim, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'yimeru amen. Oseh shalom b'mrama, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'yimeru amen.
Malay Rachamim, Shochem Amramim, Hamsei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei Hashchina. Im kedoshim u'deorim, kezorakia matir. Et nishma yakirinu shalach le'olamo. Yesterday, beseder knafot le'olamim, v'yitub midrachim et nishmato, Adonai hu nachalato, v'yanuach b'shalom al mishkavo v'nomar amen.
O God, full of compassion, eternal spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Alan Fox, who has entered into eternity. O God of mercy, let him find refuge in the shadow of your wings. And let his soul be bound up in a bond of eternal life. Be thou his possession. And may his repose ever be peace. And let us all say together, dear friends, one of the things that the family was most concerned about was your welfare. It took them a long time to ultimately decide that there will be no Shiva, no visiting, because they want you to be safe, especially during this period of time. They also recognize that many of you would just like to express your condolences to the family. So they're going to be here for a little while, not a long time. But they do have one request. If you do come up, two requests, one on my part and one on theirs. Theirs is, if you do come up to say give your condolences to them. Please have your masks on. And number two, please recognize that there are many of us here, and make your condolences very, very short, very quick, because they do need to leave here and go back home. The departed whom we now remember has been called unto the peace of life eternal. He shall still live on earth in the acts of goodness he has performed. And in the hearts of those who will ever cherish his memory, we pray that the beauty of his life will ever abide among us all as a living and loving benediction. And may the source of peace send peace unto all you who mourn. And may God comfort all the bereaved among us and in Israel and all the nations and the families of earth. And to Alan, we say, Lech, Tishalach Adonai. Go your way, for God has called you. Lech Adonai Yimach. Go your way, and may God be with you. Halach lefanecha tzidkecha. Kavod Adonai Yasvech. May your righteousness go before you, and may the glory of God receive you. And let us all say together, Amen.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Hi, you guys. Thank you so much for coming.
Oh, you're so
That's a
skinny.
negative, by the way.
You
so,
did?
Yeah. Thank you for coming, Jeff.